It's on.
Welcome.
What do you need?
Wednesday night. It's the Alberta. Yeah, let me restart that one again. My name is MacKenzie Wilson. I'm one of your hosts. Welcome. Here we are. We're going Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. We're the only talk show dedicated to Alberta landlords. Welcome to the Alberta Shoptalk show. I'm alongside Bill Beacle, one of our standing returning landlord. I don't even call you a guest speaker anymore. You're more or less just, here's Bill. We got him on the show. Let's talk landlording. And as well, I've got Chris Noble with me, my other co-host, my partner in crime. He's come back from the thick of the woods of Canada's country last week. How was your vacation, Chris?
I was on assignment, let's be clear.
Right. Assignment, hitting 18 holes and doing a few hikes. So.
Yeah, came across a very interesting object in the middle of a 5K hike and ended up with a great big pile of grizzly poop that I knew darn well wasn't more than an hour old.
Oh, wow.
So we did a 180 and got out of there pretty quick. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'll throw a quick little story in here. I may be a little bit slow tonight. Maybe I might be a little off in my game. I have a day job at TELUS, and I end up working on a trouble. I'm one of maybe a half dozen teams that work on the core of the network, and I was up to just after 3 this morning. And then I also had a commitment to play hockey from 7 to 8 a.m. I would have 100% backed out and bailed on it, but I was the goalie. And there's about 20 guys coming out, and going to hockey and not having a goalie on one side, guys aren't usually happy. So I had a bit of an afternoon nap just to kind of reset for the show here. But I may not be my wittiest or quickest, but I'll rely on Bill and Chris to guide us straight. Bill, how's your day going?
Going great. I got to talk with you for 40 minutes this morning, so that was a good part of the morning. And I kept you awake. I either helped you get a little sleepier so you can have that nap in the afternoon, or I helped you get through part of the morning.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I'm going to touch base on a few quick announcements. It's going to be about 1 more minute here, and then we've got, I think we lined up a half dozen questions, and I know Chris and Bill, you've got some talking points as well. We're going to jump right back into answering your guys' questions right on the page. We want to drive value back to your guys' problems that you're dealing with right now. So a couple quick exciting announcements. You may have seen it yesterday. We have a sponsorship. Just signed up Greenleaf, their property management company out of Calgary. Super exciting. And what we're really excited about this for you guys and the value add that they're going to bring is we've got 2 new shows every month now. We have a rental market update for the Calgary area. I know it's not the whole province wide, and I'm working to bring more voices in to get better representation across the province because, of course, we have members all across the province. But we do have a show now talking about rental rates. We'll talk about what's going on, trends, things to prepare for at that month. So we're talking about September, October, November. We're going into fall. We're going into the winter season. Things slow down, so we'll talk about what to prepare for that. As well, they're going to have Ask a Property Management Company. That's the other live show we'll be doing once a month, and that is just super value add. Really, you guys I've seen lots of questions on the page asking, how does a property management company do this? How do we do that? Well, now we've got a property management come to the table. They're going to sit down and chat with us. So that's super exciting. We'll watch for those shows that come down the line. And then the last piece I'll touch on quickly here as we're at the 4-minute mark is we have some training and some new stuff coming down the pipe. I'm working on it right now, and I'm hopefully I'm targeting launch in December. So 2 things for that. If you want to be part of the beta test group, I'm going to open it up to about 20 spots. Send me a PM, send me a message, and I'll give you the details on how to participate in the beta program. You'll get free training out of it, but I'm expecting in return for some feedback and some testimonial or some general feedback on how you like the material. So it's kind of a 2-way system. You get some free training, and in return, I get some feedback to make sure the course is built for the needs of you guys. Thirdly, as we want to build the show and take it forward, I'm looking for guest speaking landlords. If you're interested in being in the show, you've watched it, reach out, PM myself or Chris. You can have lots of experience or no experience at all. It doesn't really matter. What's key is your perspective, and having that different perspective on the group will drive questions from your perspective that if you answer it or ask a question in a certain way, you might have another 10 people in the group who will really click with the way you've asked that question, and we'll get better learnings for all the group. So if you want to be a part of the show, send us a message, let us know, and we'd be happy to have you involved in the conversation.
And then I can get a night off.
There you go. and give you a light off. Exactly. Okay, I'm going to take a sip here. I'm going to step back. We've got a bunch of questions lined up. I'm going to pick the first one. We had a gentleman in the group. I was just messaging him earlier on one of the posts, Chad Bailey. And we're talking about overholding tenants. So if I understood Chad's situation correctly, he had a term lease just coming due. Let's say, just for argument's sake, it ended August 31st. He's got new tenants lined up to move in September 1st, but lo and behold, his current tenants that should have been moving on the 31st haven't left the property yet. So we have tenants that are overholding. So how do we deal with the situation? What are some things we can do? Bill, I'm going to throw it to you first to get us going in that conversation.
Overholding can be a real challenge, and you almost want to build in a buffer so you're not doing a back-to-back tenant like that, especially if you have somebody you're having challenges with. So if you're ending a fixed term lease with somebody and they're not excited about it, there's no guarantee it's going to be smooth. So you have to make sure it's smooth by either being on top of stuff and letting them know there's going to be issues and ramifications if they're not out on time. And, with a situation like that where you've got this not necessarily best relationship that you're ending, you can't even guarantee the property is going to be that clean or nice or organized by the time the new people move in. So you need to have a couple day or a week-long buffer to get things cleaned up and buffed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
My personal best experience is I had tenants moving out that had actually bought a place, and they were just fantastic people and more than willing to help me out and let me show it while they were in there. And I think it was a 2-hour turnaround from them moving out to the new people moving in. And perfect. Like, they cleaned the place better than I think I could have. And it was just a wonderful experience. That is not the norm.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
So in Chad's case, he had tenants lined up. I guess couple questions as I think. Hey Renee, cool. I just saw your chat as well. I'm just thinking, and Chad, if you're on the show here, throw us some comments in the group and let us know that we're on the right path for you. If you've got tenants that are overholding, and versus what's the communication that's been up to that point? If it's a termed lease, technically you don't need to give any sort of notice that, hey, I'm not renewing. But like in practicality, the tenant needs to know that you're not going to renew the lease, so they can make arrangements to get out of the property. And if you have clearly documented text and emails and conversations saying, I am not renewing, please make arrangements, when are we booking your move-out inspection, so on and so forth, you've got the right evidence in place to go get a quick eviction or start that eviction process. Bill, in this case, if he's going to do the eviction process, because now he's kind of stuck in, we're talking September 2nd, he's probably lost that tenant they had lined up. Maybe you can negotiate them, prorate their rent for have them move in the 15th of the month. But to deal with the current tenant and start that eviction process, should he be going with a 15-day eviction notice, or can he go straight to eviction?
Directly do an eviction. This is, he's got to jump on that right now. And this is why you typically won't or can't get somebody in right away. You just don't know if you're going to get messed up by the other tenant. And now you've actually messed up that other potential tenant's life because they probably had to be out of where they were. So now you've got a domino effect. So they could be affecting another landlord because now they've got nowhere to go. So, but to the point, you have to start an eviction application to get these people out, and you have to basically position it so, maybe scare them out early. It's like, listen, we're going through an eviction. If you are gone in the next couple of days, well, I'll cancel the eviction hearing, but I'm applying tomorrow. But if you're not gone in a couple of days, this is going to show up on your record because we're going to end up reporting it all. You're going to get an eviction judgment against you. You're going to get charges, additional rental charges against you for the days that you stayed extra. And it's just going to make it that much harder for you to get another place in the future. So you just kind of leverage it a little bit to put a little fear in them and see if maybe you can get out quicker and maybe still save that other tenant. But there's a good chance the place is going to be a mess because they're not going to care about it. And you're going to end up with a couple days of cleaning, maybe repairs and painting anyway, bottom line.
Yeah, Chris, any thoughts as we kind of talk about the sticky situation?
Yeah, so fortunately, I haven't had to go through it, but listening to Bill's past and his expertise in that is actually I'm helping out a lady right here in Panoka, and I'm going to check in with her. But she gave an eviction notice for the 4th. It was the end of the term and everything, and he's still not out. I went by the house tonight just checking on it, and well, he's got 2 days, and it doesn't look like there's very many boxes. So we're going to have to file for her and get one of our guys to do it. I'll probably get a hold of Rob, and he'll help her out because the guy is going to be difficult. He's a bit of a bully as it is. So.
Okay, so it sounds if you're already in this position and they're overholding and it's the 2nd and they should have been out a day or 2 days ago on the 31st, it's eviction. Get the eviction process going, start it. You could, and I'm just trying to think if there's a way you could wordsmith it to negotiate maybe a quicker exit from that tenant. Maybe like what Bill said, maybe hey, if you don't want this on your record, if you're out by this Friday and the 3rd or the 4th, we'll make some arrangements. Like just have that conversation, see if you can drive that dialogue somewhere that can find I don't know if I can call it quite a mutual a solution, but at this point you want something sooner than later. Let's take another stab at this question. Let's say someone is 2 weeks away from ending a term lease. They know it's likely going to go bad. It's a rocky relationship. Is there anything we can do in that situation to have that tenant out on the 31st as opposed to preventing getting into a situation of overholding the tenant?
Yes. So one of the tactics that we can use as landlords is we don't have to give security deposit back until 10 days after the tenant's vacated, which is huge because as landlords, we're probably well aware there is only one security deposit in the world quite often. And it has to go from the one landlord to the next, meaning that tenants think they have to get it back the day they're moving out. If you warn them that you have the right to hold onto it for another 10 days, it can upset their apple cart. And now it's suddenly your leverage. We're back to, if you leave the place in good condition and on time, I will ensure you get your security deposit that day. I can arrange it. If you make this difficult, and it sounds like you're starting to make it difficult and leave me a mess, I have the right to hold on to it for 10 days and do any deductions at that point. So let's make it work for both of us. This is part of your move out process as well, where you give them, as Renee's pointed out in the conversation here, he starts communicating 6 weeks prior to see if it's going to look a little bit weird. You also give them the information that, this is what your costs are. We talked a little bit about this with Isabel last week. Here's your cost breakdown. If we have to do the cleaning, it's $30, $40 an hour. If we have to replace a light bulb, it's we use LED light bulbs, so it's $6 a bulb plus my labor, which is another $5 a bulb. All these little breakdowns, so they have a very good idea what's their cost will be and what all these things will be.
So you're setting, and what I like what you're doing here is you're setting the stage of expectations. If you choose to go down this path of being difficult and here's what's going to happen, and here's an alternative. If we have an amicable solution, I can do this for you.
Yeah,
I like that play.
And you gotta do it nice. You don't want to alienate them, but you just got to make them aware. It's like let's make this work. I've always been fair with you before, or typically I can say that anyway. I've been fair with you before, and this is what I'll do, and this is how I'll help you. But if you're going to make it difficult, it's got to get ugly and difficult along the way.
Yeah, totally. Okay, I got to put my glasses on. I've got a LED light, but it reflects pretty crazy in the camera with my glasses, but I can't read the comments coming in on the group here. So, all right.
Let's put, you want to put that one up from Tyler? He's asking, and I think Tyler, I'm just trying. Yeah, okay. It was his post. Sure. Tyler posted earlier in the week. I don't know if everybody saw it. Where
I will grab his question. I tagged it in as one of the questions I want to talk about. So you get going and describe it, and I'll bring it up in the group.
Yeah, you know. So you already picked it out for tonight's show. Good for you. So Tyler, you got queued in before you even asked your question. You were on the list to talk about. So Tyler, Bill, I don't know if you saw the post. Tyler's tenants had a fire. Well, there was a fire pit in the back. Whether Tyler had it there when he lived there or whether they brought it in. But the fire pit damaged the garage. Now, I was looking at some of that had to be a hell of a fire to melt the side of the garage.
A little bit out of control.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Oh, a little bit more than. But you know what, Tyler? There's one thing. Let's address just the fire thing, because I know there's lots of comments about bylaws and stuff. First off, those things should maybe be addressed somehow in a lease. But however, the bylaw overrides your lease regardless, and they needed to have a grate on that fire. Usually they're 10 mil grates or less. That stops all the sparks. But again, it was a pretty big fire. They're irresponsible. They caused damage. So yeah, you have to do what you have to do to go after them for the damage, and that may take them to the RTVRS or small claims court to recover your costs. But I wouldn't take that out of the damage. Well, if your damage deposit's not going to cover it. So
yeah, I think this is going to be more of an insurance issue. And if I recall in the post, he's saying the tenants do have tenant insurance, and they're going to have to apply that. And if need be, you should probably be notifying your own insurance company, just so they're in the loop, and let them know that your tenant does have insurance. And what they will do is, if you have to make the claim through your insurance, they'll go after the tenant and his insurance, or the tenant can just do it on his own. But
so I really want to add on this point too, Bill. So we had this conversation one of our first 3 or 4 shows, and it's something that has a great takeaway for me. And I think, Tyler, you kind of fit in this situation. So if, for one thing, great, the fact that you made sure your tenant has tenant insurance, that's awesome. That puts you in a stronger position, because if the tenant has done something that they're liable for damages, and it's easy to prove, which looks like from the pictures and what you've shown us, and the fact that your comment says they burnt the couch, which is like crazy, because that's huge. And you've already mentioned it's to bylaw and all the location and all that stuff. You can talk to your insurance company, explain the whole situation, what's going on, and tell them that their tenant has tenant insurance, and if you have the documentation, the certificate of insurance, send that over. Typically, we had this conversation, and I can't remember if it was with Court Heisler, Chris, or it might have been another landlord, but something had happened. The tenant was responsible for the damages. They had insurance. They followed with their own insurance company. Their insurance company went after the tenant's insurance, got covered for the cost, and their personal insurance policy was never affected for premiums. And that's the big takeaway I think is super important here, is that start the claim with your side, because it's on your property, you have homeowners insurance, but get all this information, do full disclosure, and ask about, hey, since the tenant caused this, they're liable. And I've seen this done before. I've heard it from another landlord. They should go after their policy, and it should not affect your premiums. That's kind of the big takeaway. Awesome. And Tyler says he does have the certificate of insurance. So that's kind of the big thing. And the other point in your question too, and I'm sorry, Bill, I was kind of double thing. I want to make sure I might be repeating this, but you asked, when should you go after the damages? Go after the damages right now. Keep the damage deposit for the end of the lease or the term. Yeah. You can always go after damage at any point in the rental.
And I guess my big question now is, did they burn a couch in the fire pit, or did it get burnt by the fire pit?
You know what? Given the stupidity of things, I would be surprised he's threw the couch on the fire pit after you've had a few too many barley pops, and just for the fun of it, and then they go, oh shit.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I've actually burnt a couch in the past, like a long time ago, but this was in a very safe place on a farm, and it's a big fire, and it goes up fast. But that's a whole side fact. So.
Yeah. So yeah, Tyler, just to recap real quick, is just go to your own insurance company, which I think you have. They will go out. Your insurance company will love to get their claws into somebody else, so they don't have to be out money, and they'll go after the other people either civilly or go after their insurance company. So
yeah, but they did throw it in the fire. Awesome.
Yeah, you got me, throw it in the fire.
Yeah,
hold my beer and watch this. Yeah.
So my thought process, and one more add on this, and we'll move on to the next question quickly. But since you've got great tenants that are owning up, they're kind of taking responsibility, work out a time frame that they can get repaired in, and if they don't get it done by that time frame, tell them you have to engage in the insurance and start going down that process, because you got to protect your asset. And you got to go, but if you can give them an opportunity and they can fix the side and you trust their ability to do it, or they go and get quotes and get a professional to do it, and they can fix it without affecting their insurance, then I would give them that opportunity, because really it's some plastic siding. But if they're not capable or they can't get it done by a reasonable time frame, set those expectations and then go down the insurance route.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your next question there, MacKenzie?
You know what? I edited the post for this live show, and I had all these questions I tagged people in, and I can't find it now because I changed the description. It broke it, so I had to delete the live show and recreate it. And
all right, I'll tell you what. So you don't have to explain yourself. Bill, did you find one? I got one if you don't.
So you've got the one from Deanna Clark. How to get a month-to-month tenant to sign a term lease.
I like that one.
That's a good one.
I think Chris and we talked about this just a couple of days ago a little bit as well, or a variation on it. My take on that is you give them two options. If they want to stay month to month, you let them know there's an upcoming rent increase, and you've got to remember you've got 365 days where you can't raise rent. So if they've been on a 6-month lease that's lapsing into a month to month, it's a slightly different scenario. But if it's been a year, it's lapsed into month to month, you want to get them back on fixed term. Here's my 90-day notice of a rent increase, and it's going to be, if you're currently at $1,200, it's going to be $1,475 if you go with the month to month, because I don't have the assurity of a fixed term lease. Or if you want to go with my fixed term lease, I'll make a much more reasonable $1,325 because a lot of pressure is off of me. And I made up the numbers, so you got to make sure you have your numbers there. But there's got to be a premium for that month to month, and suddenly it becomes a much easier decision for people.
Yeah, that's basically it. I saw this question came up last week too, and another gentleman posted that, and I was like, that's phenomenal. You know, you send them a term lease for the rental rate, or you can go a little aggressive on the month-to-month term to make the decision pretty simple. And maybe as a third option, if you don't want these tenants, it sounds like the way I got the tone of the post, she's like, you know, we just started out, we let it lapse into month-to-month. They've been there for 4 years, so it sounds like the relationship's good. So that's probably the way I'd position it, and is like what Bill said, make it a premium for that month-to-month. And you don't have to go super aggressive if they've been good, but make it enough that, you know, the $150 to $200 difference is like, maybe I'll sign a lease.
Yeah, just enough to make it worth it for you to take the risk of being on a month-to-month.
Yeah, love it. Chris, any thoughts on that?
No, that's good. We're good. Let's go.
Yep.
That's a question came up on the site here on the show. So why don't you?
Yeah, Crystal's one.
Crystal Finding.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Crystal. So I'll just take a quick run at this.
Can I just pause you guys there for a sec? Are you guys getting an intermittent thing, or is it maybe it's just on my end? Are you clear for each other, or?
Chris, you're here.
Yep, same as well.
What? You're clear?
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably on my end here. I may just log out quick and come back in just because I have to reset. So, but go ahead. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Well, while Chris is fixing his IT issue, so Crystal says, my husband has an order that was filed with the Queen's Court bench in November 2012. He served the tenant and obtained an affidavit of service filed on January 2013. This included an order and a notice of default. The tenant immediately fled Alberta. Well, okay. We suspect he is back in Alberta as of last year, but have no real proof. Can my husband still proceed and try to obtain the outstanding judgment of $7,000, or is this past the limitations? My husband tried to file with a right back in 2013, but the click indicated he needed to serve the tenant. That's all I got. So,
well,
from what we've got so far, Bill, I'll throw this at you, and I've got one take, but you're our eviction specialist. So what do you think?
There is a limitation, and I believe they changed the limitation on that. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was 5 years, but you can renew it. You can get it renewed and extend it again. Now, I think there was something about it reducing it to only 2 years. So that's where a little bit of the confusion comes in. The challenge is, if you have no idea where they're at, you're not going to be able to collect anyway.
So I have a take on that point. Should I add that point in now?
Jump on in.
Okay, so if you have your original application and you've got, typically in most applications, if it's a standard one, it gives you permission to check credit, and they usually sign off saying, yes, you can go and pull my credit. Well, guess what? Typically the way those are worded, there's not an expiry on it. So yeah, maybe you got that back in, 2011, whenever you brought this tenant on board, if you still have your original application, go pull their credit. You'll probably likely get a current address and current place of employment. That would probably be the best and easiest way to track down this individual. Okay, and back to you, Bill.
Then it's going to come down to, if you can track them down, what kind of job do they have? If they're in the trades or contracting, stuff like that, it's so hard to get money out of them. If they're a professional, where they're an accountant or a teacher, it's much easier to garnish their wages and collect that way. So it does give you some options. But if they were able to just flee Alberta, I'm expecting they had more of a transient type of job, which makes it challenging.
Mm-hmm. So continued. My husband tried to file a right back in 2013, but the clerk indicated he needed to serve the tenant again, and was not possible since we did not know where he was. He also did not understand what was needed to be served. I'm trying to see if this is worth the time to pursue or just write it off and close the file.
Her next comment, this fellow only works underneath the table, probably not worth it.
Oh,
the time and effort involved in trying to get $1,000 or $2,000 out of the $7,500 is just going to frustrate you.
I guess the other thought process is if you're going to write it off and it's not worth it, it's got a $7,000 value, send to collections, let someone else chase it down. If you get 30 or 40%, perfect. If not, then
or let them get harassed for the next 5 years. That's fun. So.
And then there's karma in that. And if they do get something in place, or they do get a record, I think the fact that you followed it, if another landlord was doing their due diligence and did a proper background check, that would be discovered. Which is, by the way, great. Thank you for doing that, because that saves another a landlord from the trouble you've dealt with. So
a smart landlord from trouble.
Right. It requires them to check. Okay. So yeah, I guess long story short, it's kind of tough in this case if he's doing that kind of work. So okay. His father. Oh, she said that she knows his father lives in Marnville. Go talk to the family. Can you do anything with that, Bill?
You can. There's nothing against talking to people. We've run into that situation where the parents have disowned the child. So, sometimes you find more out than you hope to know. But it can't hurt. Parents have disowned the child. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's move on to the next one here. Bill, you got one lined up here? I do not.
Tenant was given a 14-day eviction notice for a pet with no written approval. However, this evening he put a letter from his family doctor in with his rent payment, stating that he is unable to move out of his apartment due to health issues. Is that legally binding? And I now won't be able to evict him. That's from Kelly Bevan Brandt.
Yeah. So we were chatting about this one in the pre-show. I won't steal your thunder, Bill. What was your suggestion on this?
Go ahead with the eviction anyway. Move forward with the eviction, put the pressure on the hearing officer to make some kind of ruling on this. And they may make some kind of, we'll call it like a stay Cinderella type order where they have to get rid of the pet. They're allowed to stay on with the condition that they don't break any other conditions of the lease or any other issues. If they do, it's an immediate type eviction if it happens within X amount of time. Or they may just say, you know what, you broke the rules of the lease. We don't care about the doctor's notice because that doesn't fall under our branch of the RTA. So you have to leave anyway. And I don't want to sound negative, but it's probably a fake note, or it's probably a made up situation. So
I'll touch a point on that. But so Bill, and another point. So if they've only filed for the unpaid utilities.
Yeah.
How would you strengthen your position so you don't get tied into a longer cycle or time frame to get this person removed? How could you shorten the process?
Yeah, and this is something we've talked about a few times, both privately and I think in some of the previous conversations here. When you're evicting a tenant, you've got to evict them for every possible breach. We've got one other question coming up that touches on that as well, and this is the carpet one. But yeah, if you've got multiple instances, you don't just pick the one that you think you're going to get. You evict for all of them. Now, the new challenge is with the online, you're only allowed to put in, I believe it's 3 items that you're evicting for. But you can make an initial notes in the application saying we'd like to also evict for this, just so it's all kind of on record that there's all these additional breaches, because you want to make sure, if you're evicting for non-payment of rent and they suddenly pony up the rent, but you don't want the tenant, you've still got them for the other breaches and can
The
still
damages. Yeah.
If your eviction issue, like the non-payment of rent, gets thrown out, now you're stuck with the tenant and they're a little bit more bitter, you're a little bit more bitter, and you're not where you want to be.
You're restarting the whole eviction process too.
Yeah.
And Bill, in that case there where you have the rent's paid, but the rent's late. You have utilities that aren't paid, but all of a sudden they throw a check at you right in the middle of it all and get it all paid up. The third thing is continuously late rent. And you pretty much got them with that because you got the history there, right?
Yeah, continuous breach of payment terms. And this is stuff, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but you've got to make sure you have enough evidence to make everything work. My typical eviction application is anywhere from 80 to 120 pages because I just stack up all this evidence. If you've got somebody who's paid late once or twice and you've just verbally talked to him, said, don't do that again, you don't have a lot of evidence. That may be a situation where you give them a 14-day eviction notice to show you're serious and see if you get them on the right track. Second time it happens, it's like, listen, here's one more 14-day eviction notice, but this is my last warning. Here's an additional notice saying, you've breached the payment terms twice. This is not to be tolerated. If it happens again, I'll be proceeding with an eviction. Now, if it happens a third time, you've got some pretty solid evidence. You gave him a notice. You told him it's not right. The second time, you gave him a stern warning saying it's not right. Here's what's going to happen. The third time, you did exactly what you said you were going to do, and you started the eviction process, and you've got breach of payment terms as a viable option.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris, I want to go back to you on this. You raised some good points, and we're kind of talking in the pre-show. From your policing background, when you deal with a police note, and you gave the example, the doctor gave you a note, I don't have to wear a seatbelt. How do you guys approach that on the law enforcement side? This might give some more context on how you can deal if this note is in fact true or not.
There are some formal ways that those things have to be met. Like, let's use that seatbelt example. And there's a formal letter, but a lot of them just show up with a prescription pad. The doctor said don't have to wear a seatbelt, and it was dated from 1998. Well, you know what? That stuff. Basically, tell at the hearing, says, I want something from the doctor in writing. Make them go get the $300 letter from the doctor. That changes things, everything. A prescription pad, they're laying around the doctor's office. We had to deal with people stealing them all the time, and they fill out a prescription and go into the pharmacy to get their prescription. Those things, you can't prove the validity of a prescription pad. Anybody could write that out. So get us something on a letterhead.
Yeah,
and I would force that in a hearing, and I would demand that, and I'd ask for an adjournment for whatever number of days, 5 days for them to go see their doctor and bring in a proper written letter and have it submitted. You can ask for that stuff, request the adjournment. So,
yeah. No, I'm going to quickly summarize and add in a tad bit. So Bill said, go down the legal process, get to the hearing, get to the RTDRS, have that conversation. And make them make a decision. Don't arbitrarily accept that note now as that is true or not, because you're not the one making the legal decision here. It's because you've gone through the eviction process. As Chris says, ask for more. Get them to bring some additional legal paperwork stating that this paperwork is in fact true. My thought process on this, if they provided you a doctor's note or a letter stating blah, 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 you should be able to see the doctor's office. I would go and call that doctor's office, and some might think, well, they can't release anything because of privacy issues. Well, no, I'm not asking for them to confirm the information on the letter. I want them to confirm that he actually wrote the letter. So if you get their doctors to actually say, yeah, I wrote this letter or I didn't, you're going to get very quick proof whether this note is in fact fabricated and fake, or if it's actually legitimate and the doctor did write it. And you already have the information. And as far as I'm concerned, they've provided you this letter. It's now kind of public information. You don't really need to validate what the body of the letter, because you already know what it is. You want to validate the letter is in fact legit.
Right. And I think it's still back to go through with the eviction and put the pressure on the hearing officer to make a ruling on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
The thing I've noticed about the hearing office and listening to some of the horror stories and my own experiences is that we don't have, some of these people aren't even lawyers. They have a little bit of a legal experience in their background, but they're not following the rule of law all the time. If we had Rob Bonnet on here tonight, I would just light him up with that question because I know how he feels about the RTD RS.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, you have to stand your ground a little bit with them and don't get bullied around them. Ask for an adjournment. If you don't like the way something's going, or you're having to say, no, well, I'd like an adjournment then to get something, because you don't want to leave there with a ruling against you. It'll be better to get some kind of adjournment, go get what you need, go get some advice, and then come back at them in a couple of days again. So.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. There's some real discrepancy, I guess, between various rulings and various situations. So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's head on to the next one. By chance, do you guys have those questions I pinned up? Because I can't find them. Or you do, Bill?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Don't refresh your screen.
It'll disappear.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Looking for some advice. We signed a 1-year lease for the couple who moved in May. Rent is due on the 1st, and I am having to send them a reminder text every month. In June, they were 5 days late with rent and had a story about how the bank took time to cash out their TFSAs. Rent is due today. She is saying she sent it this morning, but due to CRA security breach last week, e-transfers are taking longer, which I know is a lie. I still haven't received the transfer. How would you handle someone who keeps blaming the bank for her tardiness? Thank you. Ekta Baga.
Light them up with a 14-day and show them you're serious. Stop messing around. Day 2, yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion. Maybe a little too redneck. I don't know what you think, Bill.
This comes back to what we just talked about. Well, they've got a history of paying late. If you have to bug them each time, you got to document stuff like this. Whether it's the 14-day eviction notices or doing official notices, send them a letter / email saying this is unacceptable. Rent is due on the 1st. It needs to be paid on the 1st. The issue you run into if you send them, little text going, oh, just a quick, little reminder, we haven't got rent yet. Can we get it in the next 5 or 6 days? You're setting a precedent. Yep. So if you do that 2 or 3 times and then you try to evict them for breach of terms, they go, well, we didn't know it wasn't okay. You never said it was bad. Hearing officer looks at that and says, well, the precedent's been set. You've accepted it and you haven't made any issues about it or made a note about it. You send that stern letter that first time or give them that 14-day eviction notice, and now you're setting the precedent that it's unacceptable. And that's what you need to do. It is simply unacceptable.
And don't get caught up. You know what? Right away, first thing back at you and trying to get you to feel bad is like, oh, that's a little tough. That's a little bit extra drama, And okay, so they're trying to spin it back onto you. It's just talk to the hand.
Yeah.
This is what's required. This is on the lease. If you can't pay by this time, I accept your 30-day notice. You can leave at the end of the month. Yeah. Whoa, like all of a sudden you need to stay in control of your property. You need to, quote unquote, run it like a business, not like a charity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly it. And you can start setting precedents tomorrow. Like just so there's a track record of 3 months of this going on. So you know what? I'm in. How would you want? You can just words. I'm improving the business, or we're setting the standard here. Moving forward, these rents can no longer be due, and the next time it's due on the 1st, on the 2nd, you're gonna get an eviction notice. But then if you make that statement, back up your word with the action. If you just make that statement, and you don't do anything with it, it again becomes meaningless. So like both gentlemen have said here, evidence, treat it like a business.
You like Chris? We've been elevated to gentlemen.
and follow through with that documentation, and then you're in a position to evict them. And at this point, if they're continually doing it and they're not respecting you, evict them, move on. It is a business. It's your livelihood and your financial future over someone who's come in to pay rent for a year or whatever it might be. So if you're always kind of balancing that act, you got to think about why you're doing this, and then when you get clear on that, it makes it easier to have these tougher conversations.
Yeah. All right, you ready for the next one?
Hit us.
Do you require prospective tenants to give you copies of criminal and credit score checks? Adding, how to overcome common tenant objections to providing this information. That was from Amy LaForge.
Oh, let me. We have created partnerships on this page. You are part of this page. You have access to, are you ready for this? Single key. You tell them that's requirement is to fill out the application with single key. They go in, they type it all out, they do their thing. That's part of your application process. If they object to it, that's your red flag. Do you want these people as a tenant?
Yeah.
You're going to have to ask that. And use single key. They're a partner. It's a discounted rate because you're a member of this Facebook group and because they partnered with us. We have created that for all of you to use, and I encourage you. It's a small cost of doing business. You can set up an application fee, which will ultimately cover that fee if you end up paying it. So, MacKenzie, the short version of how the two ways they can do that, I'll leave that to you. How people can jump onto that.
Yeah, sure. So I added the second part because I think the more important part of this question that she was asking is dealing with the objection, right? She knows she needs to do it. She's seen the people post and talk about it. And actually, Renee, I think you're watching. You posted on this comment too, sharing your feedback as well. How it, if more landlords did this, this would become commonplace. And I 100% agree with that. But we've got these new online tools. So for example, single key, it's super easy to use. Go on, you create it. You've got one or two ways to do it. You can collect the information and punch it in and run the report, or you can set up the tenant and put their email in it. They get emailed the link and they go fill out the application. I prefer that way, the latter, because one, they're less likely, they know their information, they're not going to make a mistake typing it out, as opposed to you, if you mistype their SIN number or a spelling on their name or whatever it might be, and then you run the report, you spend $20 and you might not get the result. But if you get them to fill it out, it's more likely to be accurate. I think more importantly here is you're having a struggle of dealing when someone comes back to you with an objection of, well, why do you need this information? In most cases, you're giving keys, you're giving possession, you're giving control of an asset. That's probably one of the most expensive things you own personally. This house could be anywhere from a condo from $200,000 up to a $500,000 house or whatever it might be. So I'm sorry, Mr. Tenant, here's what's going on. You're getting possession of a $500,000 asset. I very much need to know that you are capable of paying rent on time. And the best way I know to do that is we run credit and background checks. Now, in saying that, I'm not looking for a perfect score. I'm looking for the ability that you can show the ability of paying rent on time. And of course, running with single key, it is a soft check, meaning that there's no hit on your credit score. So you can also remove that objection as well.
Again, just to address your objection, the conflict. You as a landlord are right there face to face. They're challenging you at that point, and you're having to come up with the answers, and you're struggling for it. That eliminates that conflict if you just say, "Here's the application, and here's the application process. I will send you a link to fill it out." Done. There is no additional conflict right there immediately for you to have to deal with, and you can walk away. Like, find those little ways just to slip around it, so you don't have to deal with conflict if you're not comfortable dealing with it. Bill or MacKenzie or I just call it the way I see it. This is the application process. If you don't like it, go find another place.
Yeah. There's three other places you can go find to go away.
Yeah. And state that process. Don't make exceptions, and just say, hey, if I break, how did I word this before? Because I actually had this conversation. Yeah, this is the process, and if I've made exceptions in the past before, and I got burnt. So this is the way it needs to be done. And yeah, if you're not happy with it, I'm sure you'll be able to find another rental. Thank you for your time. Move on.
We're in the driver's seat right now because vacancies, well, especially in Calgary, are dropping quite a bit. So you've definitely got a lot more control. So the more of us that start putting these measures like single key into place, the easier it's going to be going forward when or if the market changes.
Totally.
Well, great. You guys, your vacancies dropping, so that means you're going to push them out to us, and I know who you're pushing out to us. Thanks, buds.
We know you'll be able to handle it. So you've got
us little rural landlords are going to get picked on by you big city boys.
You've got excellent guidance. You should have no issues.
So I just want to share a comment that Renee shared with us too. She said, I have asked my tenants to inform me prior to the first of the month if they are going to have an issue with making rent on the first. I also communicate on the lease that despite the reason, regardless of the arrangements we have made, an automatic notice will still be delivered on the second and I have them initially. See, that's awesome because you're setting the expectations up front. They know it's coming, and by having these processes and systems in place, you come across very professional. And honestly, tenants that have a landlord with structure and systems will actually really appreciate it, because nothing's more frustrating when you're in your living arrangement and you don't know what your landlord's doing and there's a lot of unknowns. Having a very clear laid out process, even if they don't like what you're doing, they're going to still appreciate it a lot more than being in the dark. So, and it's great tip there, Renee. Thank you.
Okay. And just one last thing to add on to there as well. I would not be that excited about accepting something from the tenant if it wasn't through a source like Single Key, and maybe you can expand on how you get the information from Single Key. I haven't had to use them yet. But it's so easy in this days of Photoshop and modifying stuff for somebody with a 312 credit score to come up as a 750.
Yeah.
We talked about that this morning. That was one part of our conversation this morning.
We did. All right, cool. Thanks. I'm glad you brought that up. So it's super easy nowadays, as Bill alluded, you can fake a credit score with a little bit of Photoshop magic. You can even do it in Paint. It's actually not that hard. I have a YouTube video on it, and it shows I can do it in about 30 seconds. So it's really easy to do. You can generate fake pay stubs that have all the CPP government deductions calculated correctly, so they look pretty legit. You can do there's another one. Oh, there's even fake driver's licenses and all that, and they look as near as the real thing as I can tell from the pictures I've seen online. So how do we avoid all this different stuff? You need to get the information from a trusted third party. Again, that's a Single Key, a Neighborly, a tenant verification. These credit checks are so critical. You know, the credit score is certainly, it's nice to have. It's one component, but to be honest, it is by far not the most important part of this credit score. It's the information in that credit score. You're going to get previous addresses. You're going to get places of employment. You're going to get their full legal name. You're going to get a ton of different information there, and all these different data points you're going to cross-reference on that application you got to ensure that what's been told to you is in fact the truth. At the end of the day, you're looking at a bunch of different data points, and you want to cross-reference them through your process of accepting the application or the tenant and making sure they're telling you the truth. That's basically the story you're trying to paint. So it comes down to, you need to get that information from a credible source. So it's great that the tenant says, yeah, I got this print screen, or I can print off my Credit Karma score for you, or whatever. Say, you know, that's nice, I appreciate it, but this is the process. I need to get it from a trusted third party. Yeah, good point, Bill. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right. Ready to jump to the next one?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay. What were you able to successfully claim for a tenant smoking in a non-smoking home with RTDRS? Thank you, Larissa Ackermans. So I may have misread this earlier when I was making my notes.
I took that from her full post. That was the question she had on. So basically, she has a bunch of damages. And she kind of went into the detail of all the different damages, but let's just, for argument's sake, say we got a nice property, it's non-smoking, and we've had renters in the year who have smoked every day and they've chain smoked in the property and it's severely damaged. How and what can she go about claiming and going to the RTDRS or to the courts? Bill?
Well, you should be able to claim for entirely repainting the property and potentially even bring in an ozone machine to clean it up. So the challenge always being, that's usually going to be much more than your security deposit. And how much more will it be? If it's, $2,000, the security deposit is $1,250. What are the odds of collecting that extra $750? You might be able to get a judgment. You might be able to go through all the hassle and the work of doing it. You might be able to negotiate with them just to give you a little bit of extra money. Mm-hmm. Or you might need to say, this is going to be such a pain in my butt, I'm not even going to bother it. I'll just get a judgment and leave it at that. Almost case by case and dollar by dollar. So you should be able to claim the entire amount of the security deposit for something like that.
Yeah.
If you're painting it yourself, you just have to justify the cost. So you may want to get a quote or two from a reputable source just to get an idea of what it would cost. But depends how much it's going to cost and what that overage is going to be. And what are the odds of actually getting the money? Do we have somebody like Crystal's tenant who, as soon as you come after them, they escape the province or they get paid under the table? So you've got minimal ways to collect. And, if you do get the judgment for $500 or $700, is it worth sending it off to a collection agency? Might make you feel a little bit better when you think about them, but.
I think to the point of her question, she wants to know what she can charge for. So I mean, if we just throw up some numbers quickly here, that Ozone machine that pulls the smell out of the house, definitely repainting walls, and you got to repaint with a special primer. I think it's Kills.
Kills. K-I-L-Z, yeah.
Right, so there's an additional cost for that type of painter. So you want to make sure you quote the right products. Shampooing carpets. If there's cigarette burns, then you're replacing flooring. I would just go and stack up all these different things to get this place sorted out, and then deep cleaning. If they smoked in it long enough, there's going to be like a film or soot on the walls and the windows and all that stuff. So those are all the things you can line up on the claim. You can make it, and it's going to probably, if it's a 1,000 square foot house, typical entry level house, you're probably looking over $5,000 if you start adding all those different things into place. Then that comes to you start that process file and then kind of follow through what Bill said. Chris, thoughts?
You nailed it.
Okay, next one.
We're going to get as many questions in as we can.
We got 9 minutes.
All right, next one. So a tenant had a fire in the fire pit. Hey, didn't we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've done it all. Oh my goodness.
Got it in there. So while you're talking, I get a text. Remember I mentioned about locally a gentleman's a bit of a bully. Mm-hmm. The lady just texted me and said, he hasn't moved out. Can you help?
He's moved out?
Has not.
Oh.
Yeah. So can we help? So anyway, I'm going to have to give her a shout. But these are these professional tenants who think they have rights, but they don't have the right. They don't think that one of their rights is to make their payments on time. So it's going to be an interesting one.
You tagged Renee's here, which is really good as well.
Yeah, I just think this is so here's Renee's feedback on how she did. She just said she just signed a tenant. My lease agreement is lengthy, but detailed and very clear of expectations. The tenant couldn't thank me enough for being so thorough and clear. She commented she felt more comfortable and confident with me as a landlord for giving me so much care and couldn't have said it better. That's awesome, Renee. Great share. And that's a cool win to really, you show the result of doing the due diligence and the work up front and what you can get. So
you come across as a professional landlord, and this, it starts with all the way you're screening your tenants, and it starts with how you deal with interactions with your tenant and responding quickly, and it follows through to evicting a tenant, doing all the professional paperwork to get it done. I mean, if you have that standard all the way through, your job as a landlord gets so much easier than, a lot of the stories I end up hearing is somebody who has no paperwork and has no processes and has a lease that they found for free off of the internet, and they're having problems every step of the way. So don't be that guy. Be Renee.
Yeah. I love using this analogy, and I think most people can relate. And there's comments about the Residential Tenancy Act being in the favor of the tenant all the time. And people, some of you have heard this, so I'm just going to say it again because we have new people. And Renee's professionalism makes me think of it, is all of you have played some kind of sports, whether it's cards or whether it's high professional sports or anywhere in between. When you play a sport, there's rules. The rules are there to be followed, so they're fair for everybody. If you follow the rules, there's no problem. Now, let's say you say, oh, that player doesn't really qualify. Well, let's bring that player. Okay, you guys go ahead and bring that player in. And I feel bad that they have to sit and watch, but let them play. Well, letting that player in, they beat the crap out of your team because that player came in. He wasn't qualified for a reason to be there, not qualified for this as a tenant to be there. You change the rules, you change the game. If you follow the rules, they're there to protect all of us all of the time. And when the other person starts breaking the rules, there are other rules that help you overcome that. So
cool. Awesome. I love it. We'll wrap up with a few things. As always, Bill, do you got a charity, a passion project, a business venture you want to share with the audience?
No, I'm going to skip that. We got one more question on the site if you want to, on the group that just came in from Terry. And this is something we talked about a couple times now, and it's I am not understanding something I see posted here. Everyone keeps saying it is easier to evict a tenant on a fixed term lease versus a month to month. Why is that? Do you not have to still give the same notice?
I love it. Good question.
Okay, and it's timely because we got to fill some time. Do you want to jump on this, or should I just keep babbling away?
Keep going, Bill.
All right. So under the rules in Alberta, you have to have a reason to evict a tenant under a month-to-month lease. So it has to be a breach. Somebody has to be moving into the property. You're a relative or yourself. You have to be doing major renovations. You cannot evict them because they're a pain in the ass. Can I say that on here?
Okay, we just moved the rate into PG-13. Keep it going.
Wait, I'll do it for you. Beep.
Yeah. So there are a lot of tenants that are just plain difficult. They're extremely demanding. They just cause challenges for you. They'll make your life hell, and you probably don't want to have them because there's so many great tenants out there at the same time. With a fixed term lease, you're not obligated to renew the lease at the end of the term. So if you do have a challenging tenant, you know there is light at the end of that tunnel, whether it's a 6-month term or a year term or even a 3-month term. So you just simply give them notice that you're not going to renew. Give them ample time to get out. Don't, spill this on them the day before it ends, but give them ample time and let them know you're not renewing and they have to vacate. That can lead us to the overholding stuff, which we talked about at the beginning of the show, but that's the reason why you want to go fixed term. And now the senior level point of this is if you've got new tenants and you want to work out the kinks, maybe you only give them a 3-month or a 6-month lease just to see how it works out and to make sure they pay everything on schedule and everything's online. And then at that point, if you've done a 3 month, you renew for 9 months if they pass your test, or maybe another 6 months, and you just kind of grow it. Remembering that you may want to raise the rent in 365 days because your taxes are going up, your insurance is going up, the rents are going up. So structure that into whatever kind of time frame that you create.
Yeah, perfect. The only thing I'll tie in on that, Bill, you handled that exactly, is just on a perspective across the country, we have it phenomenally good here in Alberta. We have the ability to not renew a lease. You go to BC, and I'm pretty sure Ontario's the same way. There's no such thing as a term lease anymore. Everything's month. Basically, when you bring a tenant, it's all month to month, and it's extremely difficult to get a tenant out. The systems over there, the legislation much more favors the position of the tenant. So I just want to make that aware where we are in Alberta. It's something just like to be truly thankful for. Right. And if things come down the pipe where they're proposing legislative changes, we need to protect this and we need to be better. I believe by being better landlords, and if we raise the bar of the landlord possession across Alberta, we'll create better rentals, create better expectations with the tenants and the landlords. We'll provide more affordable housing, and we won't give reason for the government to change the legislation because it's working. Yeah. Anyways, that's my soapbox. Thank you.
Just to add to that, BC just released their rent increases for 2021, I guess it is.
It's tied to inflation, which is like a joke.
Well, it was like 1.6%, but taxes are going through the roof, insurance is going through the roof, utilities are going up. How can landlords continue to exist if they're not raising their rent? Which now ties us into Crystal's comment that you just threw up there. Are there any cons to not raising the rent on an excellent 6-year tenant? Well, if you're in a market where rents are actually going up or the rent is extremely low for what they're paying, you're setting that tenant up for potential failure down the road when they do have to move, because if you've kept the same rent for 10 years, this is only 6 years in this case, but you've kept the same rent for 10 years, they might only be paying $700 for that upper unit on a house. That's going to be some real culture shock when they find out that it's like $1,250 or $1,300 for an upper unit now, and they may never be able to leave. Your costs are going up all the time, and you've got to make sure that you're continuing to cover yourself. So you don't necessarily have to do a catch up and bump them up $600 a month, but $50, maybe $75 a year, just to keep a little bit of it on track and not let yourself fall behind. If market rents are going up 150, maybe you raise it 100 and let them know that you're keeping them below market rent because you value them as a tenant, but you've got to cover your costs. Your costs keep on going. If the government quits raising taxes, yeah, right, and insurance companies quit raising premiums, also, yeah, right, then you'll be able to hold your rents. But that's not the case, and it's not the case in the foreseeable future.
And I want to just ask, maybe Crystal, can you just give us perspective on the difference in the rent? Are we talking like $50 below market? Are you talking like $200 to $400? Like, give us an idea, because you know it's one thing to be slightly under. I'm completely fine with that, especially for a good tenant, because that reward that 100% all day long. Good tenants do that. You know, I do gifts on renewals, all that kind of stuff. If you're talking like a 400, like, you know, a substantial amount of money, I rely on to what Bill just said. So look at that context.
Type faster, Crystal.
I tried to ask her the question because we're always a few seconds behind, but I meant to say market, not marker.
Cool. This is a fun show tonight. I love doing this. You know, guys, I love this community first approach, and I've talked about this a lot of times, but the fact that people are taking the risk of asking a question on the page, they're putting themselves out there, and you know, they're trying to learn and improve the business. We have such a vibrant community because of that. So I'm truly thankful for you guys doing that. Keep it up. It's super fun. We create a super cool conversation. Okay, we'll go back. Crystal just threw back here. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, penthouse condo in Edmonton, 1450. Penthouse means top floor, which means really nice. I mean, I would probably say that should be, I don't know market. If it's a Calgary, if it's in the Calgary perspective, that's probably, and if it's a nice area, and if it's newer and you know, downtown or something like that, that's like a $2,000 rental.
I think, Crystal, if you go do a bit of research and find out how far you are off on that, if it's, you know, $500 off, well, it's time to, you know, figure something out. If you're $50 off, she's saying it should be 3,000.
No, 300,000. That's the value.
Unit.
Well, okay, Crystal, just to clarify, market value, I mean rental market value, not the value of the house.
We're landlords.
So just to touch on that, you know, the idea would be to do a quick search for, you know, pop it into Google, Edmonton 2-bedroom, 2-bath, penthouse condo, and see what kind of search results come up. And then from there, just kind of dig down a little bit. Maybe a rent faster ad pops up, and you can go in there and take a look and see that penthouse units sell or rent for $2,800 a month or $1,500 a month, and just kind of do some comparison. And then, again, more of this advanced stuff. If you have a vacancy coming up in a couple months that you know of, or a lease coming to an end that you're planning on getting rid of a tenant, or know you're going to be looking, start doing some of that research in advance. Start doing some of the market value checks and see what ads are staying up there. See if the ads for, you know, $2,000 are staying up for weeks on a time, and the ones for $1,600 are gone after a day or two. You know, you start tracking stuff like that in a spreadsheet, and you'll have a good idea what rents are really moving and where to possibly position your property.
Yeah. Crystal, I'll add into your thing that once you figure out what the rental market value is, you also want to make sure you're able to build yourself a cushion. You're not spending everything. And because Renee just added on what made me think of it, she said here that she had enough in savings to carry her a couple months to find the person that she needs. And we all need to make sure we do that. You should have in the bank a minimum of 2 months worth of payments, which includes your insurance, your taxes, and your mortgage payments.
I would even say 4 months in this market with COVID and all these things going on. Like, make it bigger than smaller.
Yeah. So, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's far less expensive to sit on an empty place for a couple months than it is to get rid of a horrible tenant. So.
And less stressful.
It can cost you 3 or 4 months worth of rent if you have a horrible eviction. Yeah. So
cool.
We got a thank you from Samuel. He said, "Thanks for sharing all this. That's awesome."
Oh, cool. Thank you, guys. If you guys like it, we're doing good stuff. Throw up a like the show. It helps us with feedback. We want to make sure we're providing the best value. So just comment, give us a corona-free high five by doing a thumbs up on the old post. We'd appreciate it. All right, let's wrap it up at there. Again, community first. We appreciate you guys with your involvement. Keep it up. I'm having a lot of fun doing this show. Every time we have a chat, I'm always learning something new, and these chats are great and informative. So thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, awesome. Bill, thanks for joining us.